Welcome to the Indian Newslink podcast.
Good afternoon. We have Shailesh Bagwe, a political analyst, a person who is an accountant by profession, and a person whose vision is spread across the political spectrum. Although he is known as a Labour Party supporter, sympathizer, organizer of various activities for the party, we have invited him today to our office to speak about the current opinion polls and what they are indicating the post-election scenario in New Zealand. As we all know, the general election is on 14th of October, and some indications are emerging as to what is likely to be the situation on 14th of October when counting is completed. Mr. Shailesh Bagwe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Venkat, and welcome to this Indian Newslink podcast that I have been invited. It's a great pleasure once again to speak on a platform of this nature, but also as you have been in the industry and you have asked me to talk about it, it's really my pleasure. And it really matters to me because it's not about one political party or another, it's about what matters to you. So to all the listeners who are listening, I would like to take this opportunity to give my 2 cents of analysis of the political spectrum that we are going into this election. So I'm going to here talk about 2 things and 2 political parties which are the major 2 political, which is the Labour Party and the National Party.
Yep.
Labour Party is the governing party currently, and we are getting into the election mode. So to all the listeners, I'm going to dwell on 2 aspects of these 2 political parties, which is their slogan. So the first slogan of the ruling party is, I am in it for you.
Yep.
And the National Party slogan is, get New Zealand back on track.
Right.
So I want to analyze on these 2 slogans. What is in it for you, the voters who are listening, and what matters to all of the listeners. And once again, NZ back on track means what, and in it for you means what. To my view and in my way of looking at things, and the way I've seen for the last 24 years of 2 successive governments of National and Labour,
Right.
I feel that every voter should analyze themselves and reflect themselves of what they have been into 2 different governments, 9 years. Yeah. Of John Key, Bill English, and then Jacinda.
But a majority of people might not have had the experience of the 2 governments, that is National from 2008 till 2017. Labour was, the 5th Labour government was from 1999 to 2008. And then the 6th Labour government was from 2017 until now.
Yes. And I think the last 6 years, which the National keeps saying that we want to get back on track, is basically they are saying it because they feel that the expenses of Labour government that they did was too high, too much. Now this is where the listeners have to understand whether those justifiable expenses or the spending of the current government was justifiable. So when we vote for any political party, my opinion is what we look for in a political party is whether I am being treated fairly, whether I have been justified, whether I get what I want, or whether I have been looked after by the government. So
I think apart from the spending aspect, Shailesh, the National Party, what it is saying is that the Labour government has gone into areas which are unforgivable in their perspective, such as co-governance, such as giving discriminatory privileges to certain segments of the society, higher rates of taxation, and inability to tackle the cost of living crisis, cost of living rising and the crisis. And of course, the COVID management, the National Party leader said in the debate on Tuesday night that the first part of the management was very good, but the Labour government failed in the second aspect of it. So there are a variety of issues on which the National Party says that they want to get the country back on track. Their contention is that the country has been derailed, not just from a government spending perspective, but various other policies. So, in your analysis, what, according to you, are the areas which require attention from Labour, and what are the, from a slogan perspective, since you are analyzing the slogans?
Yeah. So that's exactly what I was trying to make the listeners understand, that, from my point of view, spending, was it justifiable? Was it the need of the hour? And if that was the first foundation which National agrees that the first part was greatly handled or nicely handled, that means the spending was justifiable. The second part, if that was not handled properly, or they think that the spending was too much, or there was a slow progress or slow growth, then we need to analyze that, and everybody has to analyze that what was the period of lockdown, what was the period of COVID that continued, and do you expect miracles just after COVID goes, that you want everything to be on your plate? Or do you wait and patiently, just like you waited for the first time when the COVID came, no questions were raised? So that's the thing that I would like to highlight to all the listeners. But from National's perspective, yes, there was a slow growth, that's what they think. And that is quite understandable, because they looked at the other countries, Australia for instance, and for other countries neighboring, that they thought they were recovering fast and they took the decisions fast, whereas we took the decisions slow. That was their argument, which is quite understandable. But we, a country, cannot be comparable to any other countries. We need to look into our own backyard and our own infrastructure and our own kind of facilities and amenities that we had to deal with. So I personally feel that every government needs to go back and see, when we agreed in the first debate, both leaders were saying that we will support each other in most of the things, whether it is lack of infrastructure was there for many decades. They continued agreeing to that. So these two.
No, but National has said that they will get rid of some of the plans of Labour, like City Light project. They will scrap some of those. They will perhaps not stop the ongoing projects where construction has already begun, but those that have not been initiated might be scrapped. That's what they say as far as infrastructure is concerned.
Correct.
So there can be a difference of approach if National forms the next government.
I think the priorities will always be different to both the governments, because one would say my priority is this and my priority is that. However, looking into the current situation and the current dynamics of after coming out of COVID, what the voters need is stability and continuity of that stability. And I think if there is a change in government, that also can give you stability, but do they have that know-how or the knowledge to get that stability is another, or do we want to continue with another 2-3 years of just understanding what went wrong? Why do we want to get back on track? Is that what the current government, when National comes in, is going to be a challenge?
But to what extent do you give credence to the opinion polls, which have been continuously predicting for the last 1 year or even more, that the Labour is slipping in opinion polls? And if we have to believe those opinion polls, then there's a very likelihood of the next government being a non-Labour government, which means it's the National Party government. So your justification of Labour Party is fine, because that is in your analysis, but the reality seems to be that the mood seems to be for change. So what is your, do you think that the opinion polls may not reflect reality, or they may not be the actual voting on that day?
No, I think what happens is, with everybody needs a change, and change for better. That's what happened in 2017 as well, when National had the biggest seats. The mood was changed.
Yeah, I agree. But if you look at the electoral cycle of New Zealand, for the last 106 years, except for 2 occasions, especially after MMP came into existence in 1996, the tenure of a party has always been 9 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you go from, except on two occasions when there was a fourth term, and both those were of National Party.
Sure.
So far, we have not had a Labour government doing only 2 terms. But the current prospect seems to be so. That is because, as I said, the mood seems to be for a change. We don't know. Everything is, well, as they say in politics, the final poll is the final poll. That's the decisive poll. Yeah, please carry on. So I wanted to bring this in perspective because in 2017, National had already run its 3-year term. And it was only natural that the country would expect the next government to be the opposition.
Yes.
That has been the trend throughout.
Yeah. I think this year also the change mood is there, but the thing is what the change is going to be very close, because I personally feel even the Labour is going down in the poll. I personally feel this is the other parties are emerging for the first time to that extent, where they didn't had that luxury in 2017. And when we see look back, ACT was only 1 or 2 seats, and then Greens were.
What does that indicate to you? Why do you think a party which has extreme views on ownership, on the right wing of the political spectrum, why do you think a party like that is gaining such ground in the opinion polls? As of yesterday, as David Seymour made a statement last night, he could have 15 MPs, which is unthinkable.
Yes, which is
at the turn of the century.
Absolutely, but also he is also onto the opinion, or his suggestion is to has less governance in the country.
That we will go, I suppose, we'll go into the merits
later
of ACT parties policies later. But today you said you want to analyze the slogans of the two political parties.
Yes.
So, in it for you is the slogan of
Labour.
National Labour.
Yeah.
So what do you see in that?
Yeah, see, that's a very good question, because in it for you is like everybody has to look into the facts and evidences that what has this government done for the last 6 years, and now that they are coming up with a slogan that I am in it for you. So if they were in your bad times, are they going to be further in your good times as well, and are they going to make your life better than what it was before? That's the question that every listener and every voter needs to understand and analyze. That when he says in it for you, that means he is not discriminating, it seems to me on the face of it, that whatever he was called or whatever the Labour was understood, that they are divisive or they are this. But when he says in it for you, then he's not saying I'm only for Labour members, but I'm all for everyone. Just like what Jacinda said, that this 5 million people, the COVID is, we are all in this. Doesn't matter whether you're National or whether you're Labour, we are all in this. So is it something that he is doing the similar kind of thing where he's saying I am in it for everyone? So we have taken you out of the COVID, now we are taking you back.
COVID is one aspect of Labour's governance.
Yeah.
But there are various other issues that are that are debatable. One is law and order.
Absolutely.
Second is the cost of living crisis.
Yes.
The third, of course, there are many other issues like public health, education. We've had serious dropouts in school. Law and order is one major issue where many people feel that the current government has not done enough to maintain proper law and order. This is one of the charges that are being that the government is facing. Anyway, coming to the National Party's slogan, what do you see in that?
Yeah, so National Party wants to get NZ back on track, and he is purely talking in terms of economy, because he thinks the economy was very slowly progressed after those issues of COVID and all other issues. We were very slow in recovering the economy. We could have recovered the economy quite fast, according to him. So he wants every in New Zealand to get back on track quite fast. Now, to do that is what the challenge is. So when he says that I'm going to give you tax cuts directly into your pockets, Labour says I'm going to give you increase the minimum wages, which is again increase of expenses, basically. So there is a challenge. Ultimately, they want to get the economy back on track. They want every different styles of way of doing
That will always be the case, isn't
Yeah.
it, Shailesh? Because the National Party has a different line of approach
Correct.
to management of the economy, whereas Labour has a different approach. The point is, what would the people want to decide? What would you think, what would you encourage people to think about while they take a decision to vote? First and foremost, we want everybody to vote.
Absolutely.
Whichever party they
Absolutely,
want to vote, it
absolutely.
is their business.
Yeah.
But they must vote.
They have to vote.
That is our request. How they vote, which party they vote, they
Correct.
will have to analyze the policies, and people like you perhaps can provide a bird's eye view of the policies concerned so that they can understand what they are.
Yes, yes.
So to proceed with this, tell us what is the major difference between the slogans of Labour Party and National Party? What is one major difference that you find?
Well, I personally feel that the policies that they both have come up with, like 9-point and 8-point programs,
Yeah.
that the policies that they have all there, and it's there out there for everyone to actually analyze those on their own. And see, when Chris Hipkins or when Labour says, I'm in it for you, and when he goes with those 9 points that he is going to do, and then when National says, I'm going to bring back, and there's 8 points to do that, basically, they have to understand and analyze themselves that is it really what they want is what they have been offered, or do they think that what other parties are offering, whether it is small parties or minor parties or the parties that have emerged, are they going to give something for them? This election is definitely going to be everyone is aspiring for something or the other from each party. But what matters to them most is what government they want to lead and what prime minister they want to have to lead the country. So from my analysis point of view, I think all voters needs to understand the policies that they have announced, and the policies, whether they are really going to affect or impact on them, and then they have to see whether if it impacts them, then is it going to impact their family, is it going to impact the country, basically. That's what I would say, that the analysis from my point of view is go back into the policies and differences of policies.
So are you saying in that case that as a Labour Party supporter, you feel that the Labour Party has better policies and therefore they should be returned to govern? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that make a choice of realistic views. So when Labour says that realistically I want the dental care free,
Yeah.
but I want to put it after 25 or 2026. Now, is it...
And that is not for all.
And
The
that is
dental
not
care
for
is
all,
not for
up
everybody.
to less than 30 age. But then, is that a realistic view that they are coming up? Or do you want something that National is proposing a tax cuts, but based on income revenue that is foreign buyers, again interfering into a policy that was created by Labour to stop the foreign buyers, and now they want to bring back. Is it something you want to go back to that political party where they are undoing what the previous government is doing? So that means he is setting a precedent for another future government that whatever previous governments do.
That's normally the case in a democracy, isn't it? A
No, but
political, every party comes in on its promise, what
Absolutely,
it promises.
absolutely. But
I think we should keep this for the next
Yeah.
time when we do an analysis.
Yes.
So finally,
Yeah,
between the two slogans,
yeah.
as a voter, what would be more appealing? Getting the New Zealand economy back on track. It means that something is not working at the moment.
Yeah.
And in it for you is something else. So which one do you think is more appealing to a voter?
To me, they both go hand in hand, because when I say I'm in it for you, that means I'm also bringing back my country into what I want, basically. So for me, both slogans really are complementing each other rather than contradicting.
So maybe you're proposing a grand coalition.
Well, I personally feel if that's the case, I mean, if they both want the country to go, see, ultimately the political parties are there to govern.
Well, that's a very interesting concept which has been tried in my experience only in Germany. We'll talk about that, Shailesh, because that requires a proper analysis of what kind of a marriage of
Yes.
policies that the two parties can have before even they can think about it. But at the moment, it's an unthinkable solution. But anything is possible in today's world.
Absolutely.
So with that, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, Shailesh. You can give a final concluding statement before we close.
Yes, thank you so much once again. And to all the listeners, I can only say that yes, please vote this year, even though this is your only opportunity to exercise the vote, because you will make a difference to your own self rather than anyone. Don't think that by voting you are making a difference to any political party, but you are making a difference to yourself. And I think that's with that line, I really appreciate and thanks very much for Indian Newslink and Venkat for me to invite here to talk about this. And my final concluding message would be that please look into the policies, because policies are the one who make and break the country. And I think that everybody should be looking into that very deeply and very interestingly. And don't get bogged down by political parties' slogans or anything, but look at every single thing. If there is a possibility that two political parties with two different ideas, but looking at the betterment and benefit of the government and the country that can go internationally, then so be it, basically. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Indian Newslink podcast.